Maintain your inner concentration and awareness as I share with you this reading from Affirmations for Self-Healing by Swami Kriyananda on this week's topic of kindness. When you can view all human beings as members of your own extended family, your brothers and sisters, mothers, fathers, and children, then you will find wherever you go that love awaits you, welcomes you. It is God who gazes back at you when you behold him in all. Kindness is the recognition that all are truly our own. Kindness comes from not minding how others feel about us. It comes from the simple understanding that kindness is its own reward, worth giving out to others because the source of so much sweetness in ourselves. For those of broad sympathies, the very universe is home. I'll read this affirmation and then we'll practice it together several times. The whole world is my home and the human race my family. With God's kindness, I embrace all men. Let's do this together first in a loud speaking voice, gradually softer, and in a whisper, feeling the consciousness of kindness and unity and taking it deep within. The whole world is my home.
The whole world is my home.
And the human race my family.
And the human race my family.
With God's kindness, I embrace all men.
With God's kindness, I embrace all men.
In a normal speaking voice, with deep concentration, the whole world is my home.
The whole world is my home.
And the human race my family. With God's kindness, I embrace all men.
With God's kindness, I embrace all men.
In a whisper, the whole world is my home, and the human race my family. With God's kindness, I embrace all men. Now repeat it silently with deep concentration at the spiritual eye. The whole world is my home, and the human race my family. With God's kindness, I embrace all men. The whole world is my home, and the human race my family. With God's kindness, I embrace all men. Now pray silently with me. Divine Mother, help me to see that by kindness to others, I attract not only theirs in return, but thy kindness as well. May I be kind to others always. May my kindness act as a channel of thy unselfish love. Om. Peace. Amen. Now we'll have our reading. That may be ideal. Are you on it?
Okay, this reading is from Rays of the One Light, Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Week 20, Activity versus Inner Communion. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentaries...
Let's try again.
Oh, that's the one...
It's the best way to worship.
Oh, okay. That was what it was open to.
Yeah, sorry.
Best way to worship.
Here we go.
Okay, week 21. We moved up a week. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. In chapter 4 of the Gospel of St. John, the woman of Samaria asks Jesus, "Where is the best place to worship?" This question might be expanded to include, what is the best church? What is the best religion? Is it important to go on pilgrimage to holy shrines? What is the best ritual? What's the best mantra or prayer? Jesus cut across all such questioning with his reply, The hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. It is not that outer considerations of place, church, ritual, etc. are irrelevant. Each person should find those practices and observances which are compatible with his own nature. One might say with his own vibrations. Not everyone's natural path is the same. God sent different religions into the world to satisfy different human needs. The overarching concern, however, considering that the goal is to find God, is to include in one's worship daily inner communion with the Lord. God is silence. He must be sought, therefore, in inner silence. God is absolute love. He must be sought, therefore, in the silence of love. God is spirit and thus immaterial. He must be sought above all in the expanding peace of deep meditation. Thus the Bhagavad Gita states in the 6th chapter, "Sequestered should he sit, steadfastly meditating, solitary, his thoughts controlled, his passions laid away, from every craving for possession freed." Wherever you are, whatever your outward beliefs and observances, seek God in the silence of your own soul. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Thank you, Santosh. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gita, and I'm joined this morning on the dais with Badri, and we have Nayaswami, Lorna, and Surendra here supporting this beautiful service today. Welcome, everyone here and online. So, I'm really glad we read the correct reading. I would have had to make a quick pivot on what to share otherwise, but I love this, the best way to worship, because it's a trick question. Your way. What matters is that silence, that inner path. And we find when we look at every tradition, every divine teacher that comes sharing light, and the disciples that advance in those paths, they each have stories of that inner communion, that inner light. We often they're called the mystics, and we can turn to the mystics and we find that connection to their gurus so deeply because of that inner connection that they develop themselves. So it's a trick question, and I appreciate that. Our path here of self-realization is this combination of meditation and service. And this reading today will talk about the meditation aspect and dive as deep as we can together in that area. Meditation is so deeply inspiring because it is our preparation in body, mind, and spirit to experience our true nature as bliss, cosmic consciousness, God. Yogananda says, how can the little cup hold the whole ocean of love? It's by expanding. And that is what the practice of meditation is about, is expanding beyond the little self to attune to the highest self and the divine consciousness in all things. And then we can actually experience that God consciousness that's in us, but also all around us. As you study, you discover that there is actually a warning to experiencing that God consciousness when we're not developed and ready, when our nervous system isn't prepared, when our minds are not prepared. There are so many stories of people who touch into it, but it's just it can cause madness. It can cause difficulty if they're not ready in body and mind and spirit to really experience that full divine consciousness. Their nervous system doesn't necessarily know what to do with it. And so the practice of that inner communion, that deep connection, is a natural unfolding, not a forced, not a I want to feel God right now and let's go. I mean, we can feel God through qualities and aspects by nature, but there are ways to force it. And those ways can be detrimental to us on different levels because we aren't ready. And what yoga teaches us is this path of an unfoldment of our consciousness to be fully ready to experience that bliss. I want to read just a tiny excerpt starting with Yogananda's poem Samadhi, which is an incredible description of this cosmic consciousness experience that our meditation practices are preparing us to have in our own selves. And Yogananda suggests that we memorize it. I haven't still. I need flashcards. It's very long and beautiful, and I won't read it or it would be the whole talk because it takes a good 9 minutes to get through or so. But this little excerpt, just feel the words within you as I share this, and imagine that this is the consciousness that our meditation is bringing us toward. Samadhi but extends my conscious realm, beyond limits of the mortal frame, to the farthest boundary of eternity, where I, the cosmic sea, watch the little ego floating in me. The sparrow, each grain of sand, fall not without my sight. All space, like an iceberg, floats within my mental sea. Colossal container I of all things made, by deeper, longer, thirsty, guru-given meditation comes this celestial samadhi. This is where we're going. This is what our deep inner practice of any path, that deep inner practice is bringing us toward. Yogananda describes meditation as this dynamic relaxation. It's not a passive activity. And the whole path of yoga teaches us really how to do this on the physical plane, on the mental plane, with our mind and our thoughts, and on the soul plane. And Yogananda describes that on the physical plane, our way to relaxation is tense with will, relax and feel. And the whole energization exercises that Yogananda offers is that practice, muscle by muscle, movement by movement, how to tense with will and relax and feel. And the practice of Hatha Yoga is also this way. If any of you are Hatha Yogis out there, you'll get into a posture, and it takes all this strength and agility to move into that posture and then stay in that posture. And the yoga, the beauty, the art of the practice is bringing the breath in order to find relaxation even while holding the posture. Because that is possible. And that is where that dynamic relaxation of the body exists. So that's why we have these particular practices, so that we can practice that dynamic physical relaxation, which is one layer of what we do as we prepare the body for cosmic consciousness. And then there's the mind, the monkey mind. And this is for anyone who's sat for meditation, even the moments that we had of meditation here together. How many minds went, oh, I forgot to put my laundry in. Oh, it's so, it's so there for all of us that there's so much opportunity to practice relaxation of the mind. Relaxation of the mind ultimately is no thoughts, pure silence. And this was quite interesting to me. Yogananda recommends the practice to get there is to learn to fall asleep at will. This is a hard thing for some of us. I think it's probably a hard thing for all of us sometimes. Some of us are better sleepers than others. When I first read that, I had this moment of like, well, does that mean that he's more spiritually advanced? Like, he hits the pillow and he's out. And then I, soothed my ego by saying, no, but, when things are hard, they're hard for all of us. Just because we're good at it sometimes doesn't mean we're good at will. Like, I can just, now I'm asleep. I could just lay down here in front of all of you and go, now I'm asleep, and then I would be. Whoa. That's mastery. So we all have a ways to go to that level of mastery of the mind, deep relaxation of the mind. But it's a great opportunity at bedtime every day to practice. And if you're a napper, they say 17 minutes is the magic number. So, see if you can do that, if you can at will practice. And that develops the muscle of the mind for relaxation, preparation for cosmic consciousness. And then the soul. And the soul is all about one pointed focus on God, on the divine. And that, we have many practices in our meditation. We raise our energy to the spiritual eye, to the heart. Yogananda describes the 8 aspects of God that they're light, that we can look for the inner light in our spiritual eye. We can listen for the sound of Om. We can feel for peace, calmness, love, power. What's the rest? Wisdom, joy. Yes. See? So many things that we can bring, if we bring our attention there, that is practicing that meditation at the soul level, because we're practicing one-pointed concentration on God. And God comes in all those forms, and many forms. So I had this amazing privilege traveling in India on pilgrimage several times, but this particular time, and just to shamelessly plug, it was the same journey that Badri will be leading in October. But we were at the home of Tulsi Bose, who is Yogananda's childhood best friend. And this home is particularly special, not only because of their friendship, which in itself is special, but Yogananda spent many, many, many days and nights at this home, because his home was a ruckus cacophony of kids. And this home was a little bit quieter and right next door. So he was there often. And his Tulsi Bose's daughter, Hashi, was alive at the time of this visit. This was 2013. She was blessed by Yogananda on his visit back to India in 1936. She was a very deep, dedicated yogi. And the hostess of this home, so she opens this home to visitors. She has since passed, but her family continues to do this. So on this visit, she was touring us around, and she brought us to the meditation room, and she turned to this little group and she shared a story. She said just about a month prior, one of her family members had been deathly ill, and it was very, very dangerous. And she was heartbroken at this possibility. And so their death. And so she went into her little meditation room and she began to meditate deeply, deeply, all night long. She sat there, she said, with her palms facing up, in deep concentration all night. As the sun rose, she felt something in her palms, and she opened her eyes, and there was a lotus flower that had materialized. And of course, a sign, because sure enough, this family member recovered. Within days, they were on the mend and better. This was a powerful story for me, exemplifying this, what's possible when we bring our devotion, our sincere concentration, our belief, and our discipline to sit all night long and, pray and pray and meditate and meditate. And Divine Mother listened. And there really are countless stories like this. When you travel to India, it's full of magic because there are stories of this level of discipline and devotion that are found. And I felt so uplifted just in being in a place where this sort of thing happens. Is not quite as rare as it feels that it is here. And not to say that it is not happening here, but I don't bump into it in the same way as you do when you're there. But I take from that these two aspects, and the reading brought them up as well: devotion and discipline. Discipline, of course, we have the example of Arjuna, the Pandava brother who exemplifies discipline in all the possible ways. If you're unfamiliar, this is from the Mahabharata, the great epic from India, light versus dark, our very own Star Wars. But Arjuna is one of the main characters, and that's what he exemplifies. I love this. I found some fun quotes, which is why I have this to share. This was Yogananda on self-control, and I found it when I was looking at Arjuna's life as the example of a disciplined yogi. Self-control is a spiritual business proposition calculated to bring the greatest happiness to man. Once self-control, I don't have my glasses, ripens, the soul begins to experience finer, happier perceptions and enjoy itself far more than when it lived identified with sense pleasures. And I think of that in our meditative practices, the discipline that's required, the bliss that becomes available when we take that time and we sit in deep meditation, and when the mind wanders, we bring it back, and it wanders and we bring it back. And we want to get up, we sit. There are times to not push ourselves beyond. There's an art to this, but that discipline is where the beauty comes. And we can see it in every other aspect of our lives. When we have sincere discipline in our work, we do a better job. When we have sincere discipline in our food and nutrition and exercise, our bodies are happier, healthier. The chocolate was good, but our long-term happiness is there. Arjuna trained the good guys and the bad guys, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, all trained with Drona. And Drona represents habit. And how perfect is that? Because our discipline is developed by habit, as are the opposite qualities in ourselves. I bumped into a quote I had to share on this because this really touched me very deeply. Yogananda says, "Every action leaves a trace in the subconscious mind and tends to repeat itself until it becomes a formidable, automatically performing habit." So every action, okay, so do the one that you want to repeat. Because the first time you do it, the next time will be easier, and the next time will be easier. And notice when we do the action that we don't want to repeat, that it will be easier that it repeat next time, unless we make the change. And in fact, it occurred to me, this is a lot in horse training, which I have very little, but a little background in. There's this principle that when something is done incorrectly, immediately go and do it correctly. Don't say next time we'll do it differently. And it's building on that principle, because doing anything incorrectly, it's easier to repeat the mistake next time. But if we stop and we go and we do it correctly, then it becomes easier to do it correctly next time for ourselves. So that's how we can harness habit to help us. The other aspect I want to touch on before I close is devotion, because discipline can be dry and it only gets us so far. Devotion is necessary. I, on a personal level, look at my meditation like it's my romantic relationship. Because there's something about, I want to awaken the heart. And that is my way. So it's my date night. And what do we do when we go on a date night? We make ourselves nice, and we make our space nice, and we really bring all of our attention to the other, and the other in this is God. And then we open and we be vulnerable. And we hope that openness, that vulnerability, that love is returned, and it always is. Krishna or Arjuna or, Yogananda, they never have a bad day. So it's always a good date if we do our part. But just like anything, it needs fresh energy. It needs change. It needs differentiation in order to stay exciting. All those things are true too. So that's where we go on pilgrimage, and we go on retreat, and we read something new and uplifting, and we, join a meditation with others. We're keeping it fresh. But we're also doing it consistently, every day. So that's my hot tip. Go on a date with God. Yogananda's way is Divine Mother. All of his teachings, all of his writings, he sees God, he speaks of God so often as Divine Mother. And that's another thing that we can do. And it's so, so beautiful. I, ran across the story of his first real conversation with Divine Mother. He was at Master Mahashaya's home, and the master was in samadhi bliss, and Yogananda had lost his mother, and he's young, and he describes, like falling on the floor in despair because Divine Mother wasn't with him. He was with Master Mahashaya, and he really wanted her to be with him. It's very deeply feeling description. And he implored the master to intercede with Divine Mother on his behalf. And, he didn't want to at first, because that's a pretty big ask. But I imagine he probably knew Yogananda consciousness-wise, and okay. So the master intercedes, and he then just tells Master Yogananda to go home and meditate. And he does, and he meditates all night. And this made me think of Hashi. He meditates all night. And late in the night, Divine Mother appears to him. And she says, "Always have I loved thee. Ever shall I love thee." And all that pain and anguish transmuted into bliss. The funny ending is he goes back to Master Mahasaya the next day and says, "Did you intercede for me?" And the master knows that Divine Mother came to him, so he gives him this look. I forget exactly the words, but stop pulling my leg. And so he did. So I've gone a little long, and I'll end with the whispers that I want us all to take with us on what we're preparing ourselves for through our meditation. Let's see. I had it here. The imprisoned bird of omnipresence was released. The open door of meditation released the caged bird of omnipresence. It fluttered, then spread its wings, and flew up and outward over infinite spaces. Its joyful song brought peace to every unhappiness-scorched being. Alas, unaccustomed to its newly found freedom, the soaring bird remembered the little cage that had enclosed it in old ways. It flew back, hopped inside, and folded its wings, hiding again, safely, as it thought, with its illusory security. O bird of eternity, take heart. Break out forever from that little prison of imaginary security and soar up to thy bearless home in everything. Thank you.
That's the choir for another song.